Hello everyone. In our previous video, we learned how to install Git on Windows. The installation process is very similar for other operating systems, but you need to choose the Git version based on your specific OS. Maybe you will be using Mac or Linux or Windows. Based on that, you have to choose the respective Git version. Today, we are going to learn how to set up your username and email in Git and cover some basic configuration which is essential to get started. Before diving into Git commands, it is crucial to configure Git with your username and email ID. This is important because these credentials allow Git to uniquely identify which user has made changes to the files or code. These configurations are done using the git config command. Let's start by understanding the hierarchy of Git configuration file, which operates at 3 levels. The first level is the project level. This is the lowest level and applies only to specific repository. Git checks here first for the username and email. If they are set, Git uses this identity for that specific project. As you can see, for different project, different user credential can be applied. Next is the global level. Global level can also be said as user account level. If the username and email are not set at the project level, Git checks at the user account or global level. If set, these credentials are used for all the project under that specific user. The third and the final level is the system level, which is the highest level in the hierarchy and applies to all the users on the system. If the credentials are not found at the project and user account level, Git checks at the system level. To summarize, the Git config settings can be understood as follows. Project level, it can be specific to a single project. User account or global level applies to all projects under a single user, and the highest level is the system level, which applies to all users on a system. Let's dive into the commands for setting up your username and email in Git. Now, before we proceed, I want to mention that some of this might be slightly confusing at first. So get ready to watch the video, pause it as needed, follow the steps carefully and complete the configuration. Let's move on to the practical session for setting up your username and email in Git. These are some of the configuration setup at project level. These are the Git commands which we are going to use for setting up our email and username at project level. Before setting up, at first I'll navigate to D drive and create a folder named Git sample. Right click inside this folder and choose the option Open Git Bash. Now in Git Bash, if you see my current directory, it is under D drive Git sample. Inside the Git sample folder, now we will create another folder named test using the command make directory test, where test is the folder name. Using Linux command to move inside the test folder, make use of cd space test. At this point, you can list the content of the current directory using the ls command, which will show no files or folders because the directory is empty. To see all the files, including the hidden ones, use the command ls-a. Hidden files and folders are typically indicated by a dot symbol at the beginning of their name. One more thing, the current directory or current repository means our current working folder. Now, let's create a new file named test.txt using touch command. You can confirm the creation of the file by running the ls command again, which should now display the test.txt. After creating the test.txt file, now we are going to learn about git init command, which is used to initialize a new Git repository. In simple words, to convert our folder into Git working environment, we make use of git init command, which creates an empty Git repository with few files required for Git to consider it as a Git project. Now, if you make use of the command ls, which lists all the files in the particular folder, it gives only the file which we have created, but git init actually creates a hidden folder. So for that, we will make use of ls-a. Now if you can see, there is a .git folder. So similarly, if you go to the specific workspace, you can see that .git folder is available, and this is the local config file. So I have said that there are three config files. The first one, the local config file, is present inside our repository. Now we are going to set the username and email ID through our git bash command. So for that, the command would be git config local user.name and just provide your name. Now if you use this command, you can see that the username has been set. Now if you go back to the config folder, and now you can see the username which was not present earlier. Similarly, you can set your email address for Git using the command git config local user.email with your email ID. To verify that the email has been updated, you can check the local configuration file where you will see that the username and email address have been updated. If you need to delete the username and email address, you can do so directly in the configuration file. After deletion, checking the values in the git bash with git config local user.name will return a blank value, indicating that the information has been removed. To set the username and email address again, simply follow the same commands as before. This demonstrates how to set, update and delete the username and email address for local Git users. Now, going back to local config file, if you see this, we have updated our username and email address, and also you can see that there are two sections named a core section and a user section. If you want to delete a session completely, we can make use of a git command name git config local remove section user, where user indicate the session name. Now going back to config file, if you see that the entire user section has been removed. This is how we can remove an entire session from the config file. Next, we will move on to the user account or global level. The command for setting username is git config global user.name. As you can see, it shows Hari Naina Pillai because I have set it earlier. It might give a blank value for you. So you must type as git config global user.name and your name. Similarly, we can set the email ID as git config global user.email and your email ID. For me, as I said, I have set it previously. To view the global level config file, we should navigate to local drive, see inside that user and your username. In my case, it is Hari and git config. You can see the username and email which has been set already. Similarly, we can remove the session, delete the username and email ID as we did it for local user. The only change, instead of local, we make use of global keyword. The rest of the command remains the same. This is the second config file, which is the global level. The third level is system level, which is the highest level in the hierarchy and applies to all the users on the system. Similarly, the command for setting username and email is git config system user.name. The third config file is present inside C drive program file. Inside program file, you can see git and inside that etc and git config. Since I have not set any username or email, the user session is not available. Similarly, you can set remove mail ID and username for all the three levels. Remember, you can pause the video and follow along with these steps to ensure you get everything and set up correctly. Yes, it may be confusing. These are the levels that you should know before getting into the Git. That's it for today. In the next video, we will explore more Git commands and continue our journey into mastering Git. If you have any questions or need any further clarification, feel free to leave a comment or you can mail me to the ID which I have given in the description. Happy coding!